to Gapology Radio with your hosts Mark Tinas and Brian Brockhoff. This is your leadership development podcast where they share unique insights with the purpose of helping leaders achieve their greatest potential. You can learn more by reading their books Gapology, IMBAR, and Speed of Purpose, or by participating in one of their workshops. All of this and more can be found on their website, gapology.org.
Hey everybody, welcome to Gapology Radio. As a reminder, our flagship book, Gapology, is available as an audiobook on Audible. So if you prefer listening over reading, the audiobook is a great way to get fully up to speed on the methods described in our book. Plus, you get to hear my beautiful wife, Julianne, read the parts by our central character, Maddie. An extra bonus for sure. Also, we'll be taking a little break here on the podcast to work on some projects and teach a few workshops. I would like to invite everyone to go back and listen to our earlier podcasts from the season, including our most recent series designed for individual contributors. And then stay tuned for later this fall when we'll return with brand new content. But for tonight, we're breaking away from Gapology a bit to share some awesome news about my partner in crime, the genius behind Gapology, IMBAR, and Speed of Purpose. So let's go ahead and get things rolling with Mark Tinas. Hey, Mark, how's it going?
Great, Brian. How are you?
Good. I am so excited about tonight's podcast. I'm excited to dive into tonight's topic. This is something very different than what we normally talk about. And our listeners may know if they follow us on social media, which I would invite everyone to certainly subscribe to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We're on all those platforms. But for those of you who haven't, I'm proud to share with our listeners that Mark Henry Tinas, is now an author of fiction. Mark's actually put his writing skills to work in a brand new way with a novel entitled Unraveled, the DNA Kill Switch. So congratulations, Mark, officially.
Well, thanks, Brian. I'm excited that you're excited.
Yeah, you can feel it in my voice, can't you?
Yeah, that's a big deal. Yeah. Wonderful. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and you may not remember, but when you sent me it was a super early draft of really just the first chapter. It really blew me away, and I knew immediately I wanted to read more. And I'll tell you that the listeners on this podcast will really enjoy it. In reading the whole book, it takes twists and turns, and it's a really great work of fiction, and it's actually a bit foreshadowing to some recent announcements that we've seen on the
crazy,
news.
Isn't
it? Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was crazy when you sent me that text, letting me know about some announcements by some of the members of the U.S. Security Council. But I thought we could take a little time on today's podcast and dig into this a little bit, and you can kind of we'll just chat a bit, and you can just share with us some things about Unraveled. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So would you like to give our listeners kind of an overview of the book without giving away any secrets?
Yeah, so Unraveled, the DNA Kill Switch, is about DNA, obviously, but it's about the U.S. government gaining the capability of terminating DNA sequences. And because that happens, political corruption sets in and a number of other things. And the story twists and turns. And Unraveled takes multiple meanings, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you will enjoy it. I took a big risk in that I started the book with chapter 1 being almost the end of the book. So it starts near the end and then weaves through and tells the entire story. And it's exciting. I've read it a few times myself, and I love it.
Yeah. I was so excited when it came in the mail. I think I might have got my copy before you even got yours.
That's true.
I made a little fun video of me unboxing the book. It's a really beautiful book too. The cover is kind of a silky kind of cover, so it's a little bit different than a glossy normal book that you'd see. I just think it's beautiful. And
It'll be available on Kindle in late August, by the way.
Okay. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's on Amazon now, and that's the quickest way to get it. But
yeah. And the publishing company, they did a great job with the editing, and the cover is just cool. It's a cool looking red cover with white letters. I really love the design of it.
Yeah, it came out awesome.
Yeah. So let me just ask you a few questions. So I was kind of thinking about this earlier today. So first of all, let's kind of back up a little bit. So when did you decide to become a writer in general? So, you and I have put together quite a few books now in the leadership space, but just taking a high level overview on just becoming a writer in general, when did you decide to do that?
I've been writing as far back as I can remember, even as a kid. And when I wasn't writing, I was thinking about, things to write and about stories and fantasies. My great grandfather, I think I've told you this, was Steve Gillis. And Steve Gillis was a best friend of Mark Twain, and they lived together. And I grew up understanding that and visiting their home years after they were gone, but and hearing the history of Twain. My great grandfather was with Mark Twain when he wrote his first big book, The Jumping Frog of Calaveras County, and became famous at that time. And so it's always been part of my heritage. And my name, Mark, was given to me by my parents in honor of Mark Twain. So it's always been sort of part of me to think of myself as a writer. And I had some natural skills there and just love to do it. It's like sport to me.
Yeah, and you are excellent at it, that's for sure. It's definitely part of your DNA, which is actually part of this new book is all about DNA.
Yeah. Excellent tie there.
Yeah, that just occurred to me. That's interesting. So shifting ahead a few years after writing Gapology, Imbar, and Speed of Purpose, what made you decide to jump into the fiction world?
Well, I've been fascinated by DNA and by biochemistry since probably the 80s. When DNA the technology around DNA changed and the use of DNA changed. And it's always been something that I was fascinated by. And I began to study biochemistry and DNA so that I would know quite a bit about it. In fact, the book, I don't know if you remember this part, but it has been reviewed by a biochemistry professor at a prominent university in the US. And he believed that the plot around DNA was quite plausible. So although it was science fiction, he said, this makes sense. So that's good. So I didn't want to stretch too far and create something that could never come to pass. And it sounds like we've done that. But so the book is not only a science fiction novel. It's a love story, and it's laced with political intrigue and corruption as well. So it fits a lot of different things, and it twists and turns on purpose to keep the reader guessing. But I think you'll really love it. Have you got to the end yet?
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah. Of course, I had to read it right away.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great ending. And I wasn't even expecting it at all how it kind of turned out. So sometimes I kind of can guess books ahead of time, and I'm like, okay, this is how this one's going to end. But this one really did catch me off guard a bit. So yeah, and I think that some of the characters in there are so rich. So I love the whole idea of Cooper and Angel, who are the two primary characters, and Cooper's dad, Jonas. I just love that whole relationship thing there, and just kind of thinking on my childhood with my dad and that kind of thing. I could really relate in a lot of ways. and I just love the characters, especially POTUS. I mean, that what a great character that was. Love that one.
Oh yeah, yeah. One of the things that I did, and for others that are writing or aspiring to write, I created character DNA in essence. Each of the characters is very consistent in their behavior, their way of speaking, throughout the entire book. So I tried to develop, very specific and understandable characters, and they come to life nicely in the book.
Yeah. I think our readers can identify with at least one of the characters because they are so diverse and unique characters. And I think a lot of readers out there will be able to identify with at least one of them. So
Yeah.
Excellent job there. So,
Yeah.
So where originally did the idea for Unraveled come from?
I started thinking through my study of DNA, what were the possibilities in the future? In 1987, back then was when DNA was used in the criminal justice system, and bodily fluids could be converted to the DNA sequence, and they could solve crimes that way. That wasn't discovered until 1987. So DNA research and the entire science around it is fairly new. So I was just dreaming about what could be and what the downside could be, and I came up with Unraveled, and that's where the plot came from. Now, the most ironic thing, if I can go ahead and tell everyone now, so the book was scheduled to be published around the first week of August of 2022. And in the final week of July of 2022, the week before the book was going to be published, and Brian referenced this earlier, I'll give you a little bit of the detail. Jason Crow, who is a member of the U.S. Intelligence Committee, he is a congressman from Colorado, in a news conference stated that the Chinese government has been gathering the DNA sequences of U.S. military and is working on the capability of using the sequence to kill people. And so that's frightening. But the book Unraveled was about unraveling the DNA sequence of individuals. So the premise, in essence, of Unraveled was brought to plausibility in the week before it was published. So you talk about the irony of that. I thought I was writing total science fiction, and unfortunately, it could be science fact. So read it and get ahead of it. But that news conference, which Brian and I viewed on video a couple times now, is pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. When you sent that to me, I was actually out of town, and I pulled it up on my phone, and I could not believe it. It blew me away. I'm like, oh my God, because I knew you were writing this, and it was just incredible that it actually is somewhat true, possibly. So
I had never even heard anyone speak about that while writing the book.
Right.
Or prior. So I thought that, the premise of the book was totally original, which it is, but, I guess that's how things go.
Right.
Sometimes things that are viewed as science fiction become fact.
Yeah.
And anyhow, more to come on that. Again, if you want to see the video, it's Jason Crow, Congressman from Colorado, U.S. Intelligence Committee, news conference in late July.
Yeah, it was an amazing interview. So how long ago did you actually come up with this idea, start writing, starting putting down, notes on this?
Yeah, so my methodology on writing is to begin with a storyline and then lay it out in a sequential fashion, and then begin making notes by what might become chapters in the future. And I started that in 2015. So it literally took 7 years to put together. It's not a simple process. I tend to write on weekends, and or I'll write in the evenings, and or I'll make notes throughout the week if something occurs to me. But it took a long time. Obviously, we did a number of other things in the interim there. I didn't want to push myself or create an artificial timeline or deadline, I guess. I wanted to write as ideas for the storyline came to me, and that really served me well. I came up with a number of chapters I'm sure that you were totally blown away by, and that were unanticipated in the sequence of events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And the clarity of the locations and that kind of thing. And I know you're very familiar with some of those locations, but I found those pieces to be very interesting. And
yeah,
so I know that takes a lot of time to come up with all that.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point, though. So when I talk about Lawrence, Kansas, where one of the characters lives and comes from, and he's walking down the street. He's walking down an actual street in Lawrence, Kansas, and he's walking by actual businesses and restaurants and clubs. And when one of the characters is vacationing in Maui, we're right there with them. The streets, the walking trails, the beaches, the restaurants, etc. So I although this book is fiction, it's very real in terms of the locations and the reality of what you're seeing. And I think that's incumbent upon a writer to bring reality to the reader. So I just love that. Mm-hmm. The detail, I love that. And as a leadership or a business, writer, we deal with, facts and details that are real. And I wanted to bring that to fiction as well.
Mm-hmm. In our business books, that element of detail and facts, I know that's something that's very important to you when we're writing our business books as well, because I know how sequence and timing and all that stuff is super important. Things have to tie together, where they build on top of each other. And I know that's an important part of our business books. And I could absolutely see that same thing in the structure of this book.
Yeah. So each of the locations that's referenced in the book, I have been there. I've stood there. I've mm-hmm. looked at it. I may have photographed it. I've taken notes on it. The locations are very real. Yeah. And again, that's on purpose because I think that brings credibility to fiction. Mm-hmm. It makes it very real. So
right. Yeah, for sure. No, I got to tell you, I really enjoyed the book. And I absolutely recommend it to everyone out there. And we'll continue to post links and that type of thing on our social. So make sure to head on over there for some of that. But any future book plans, anything else that you're working on that you can share without giving away any story plots or anything like that?
Yeah, so I think Unraveled, although we bring it to closure, so the book does not leave you hanging. It probably leaves you highly satisfied, and I won't go any further than that. I do think there's more books to be written there, and the characters in the star characters in Unraveled can go forward, and there can be other stories. We have another novel that we're going to begin here shortly that we've been working on for some time on a totally different storyline, and that'll be coming out. And then Brian and I have had such success with Gapology that we've taken that model and looked at it from different angles, and we've got another business book that we're going to begin shortly By the way, when you're looking at the authors' names, Brian and I write together on the business books, and I go by the name Mark Martinez. On the novel side, on the fiction side, I add Henry, which is my middle name, Mark Henry Tines, and that distinguishes between the two. And that was my father's name, was Henry. So in dedication to him, he'd be very proud of. He loved to read books. He'd be very proud of the use of his name there. So that's how we're distinguishing between the two, and we're just very proud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and you absolutely should be. It takes a lot to write any type of book, and a work of fiction, I think, it's different. I guess it's difficult, but it's difficult in a different way because it's 100% creative, along with your dedicated research to make as much real as possible. So you absolutely should be proud of it, and I'm proud to know you.
Well, thanks, Brian, and thanks for being the first to read the book.
Yeah. All right. Well, congratulations again, Mark. We have a nice little break coming up here, but I know we have some interesting new leadership topics that we've lined up for this fall. So thanks again.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everybody.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. All right, that'll do from here. Remember that during this little break, go ahead and revisit our episodes from earlier this year. We have some great insights on many leadership topics seen through the eyes of our different books. I'm sure that you'll find conversations valuable to many of the situations that you may be facing. And for more in-depth details, you can also read our related blogs on our website, gapology.org. Everyone have a fantastic week. We'll talk to you soon.
This has been a Gapology production. Visit us at gapology.org.